Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are in Surah At-Talaq. Surah At-Talaq. And it took us 3 sessions to complete the first verse. There were a lot of rulings. And not majority, a good amount of rulings were discussed in the first verse, but it's not complete. For those who want a complete understanding, you do have to study this a little bit more thoroughly. You do have to take classes before getting married. Even now, whilst you're still married, you should still learn them, revise. As those who want to get married, you should learn these rules before getting married. There are classes everywhere, they are occurring. However, actually, because of several people demanding, our youngsters, alhamdulillah, we have classes with the youngsters, college students, young married couples, and they've been demanding and strongly requesting a marriage class. Not just 1-2 hour class, actually a continuous class, a course, maybe a period of a few weeks, where they learn all the detailed masail of nikah and talaq. Similarly, there are some masail of child custody, for example, and when alimony and child, all these type of things. So we're trying to devise a course, inshallah. We're trying to, but of course we're going to ask how many people are interested. Based on that, we can get scholars to teach it. So this is something that we're supposed to be doing before marriage. Before marriage, we should learn these rules and laws. Similar are the rules of Hajj and Zakat. Before going for Hajj, well before going for Hajj, we should learn the rules. There are a lot of rules of Hajj, a lot of rules. Now, if you have a guide, alhamdulillah, he'll guide you, he'll show you. Still, you have to learn your basics. But nowadays, with the system in Saudi, things are different now. Sometimes you're going without a guide, or the guide also is not catered to the group that he's taking, etc. Nowadays, many guides are not scholars. So that's why, mashallah, Allah's gifted us, Allah's blessed us to be in this country where we're able to study, get an education, where we have much a better life than that of poverty back home. So there's no excuse for us to say, I didn't know, I couldn't learn. So Allah's given us that tawfiq and ability, we should learn these masail. Anyhow, some of the masail of talaq were discussed here. Some masail of talaq are discussed in Surah Ali Imran and Surah Baqarah, and the verses of talaq marratan, فَإِمْسَاكٌ بِمَعْرُوفٍ أَوْ تَسْرِيحٌ بِإِحْسَانٍ. There's a page or 2 pages of verses of talaq in those surahs as well. So if we want, like a majority of the main masail were discussed here, but there still are other masail as well. The uncle was asking a question, and I think for the benefit of everyone, that he asked that what happens if a person, he went through the divorce, not knowing all the masail, just knowing a few things, and he issued the divorce. It could have been many, many years ago, but now he learns the masail. He realizes, hold on a second, I didn't really give talaq the proper way, nor am I sure if she properly fulfilled her iddah, and if our separation was in a proper shar'i manner. So what's the status of that type of talaq, which could have happened 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago? So the reality is, it may have even been that talaq never properly took place. The separation actually, legally, Islamically, never happened. And they could still be married, but now if they separated, married someone else, that would be considered zina. It wouldn't be proper nikah. And this also happens where the opposite, right? This can also happen where a couple is actually divorced, but they don't know. Because he may have proclaimed divorce, he may have divorced her, and among each other, they reconciled. But the reality is, it's not just reconciling. There are rules. Maybe depending on what he said, it may be that it's an irrevocable divorce, meaning they cannot get back together. It may have been it's revocable, but there's procedure. You have to get married again, but they didn't do it. So all these years they've been living with each other, it's considered an illicit affair. It's not permissible. Their nikah is null and void, but they're living together thinking that we are married. So if any of us or anyone that we know went through divorce and we never really consulted the scholars, the muftis, or the Sharia board, Sharia council, we should definitely go and resolve or at least discuss that this is my case, this is what happened. Both parties, husband and wife. Because a lot of times what happens also, husband will say, I said this, the wife will say, no, you didn't. It happens so many times. Or the wife will say, he said this, the husband will say, no, I didn't. And it becomes a problem. And this is the reason why today we're going to talk about two witnesses. We're going to talk about that too. So, divorce and nikah, these are very delicate matters. It's a very delicate matter. Just like iman and kufr is a very delicate matter. Nikah and talaq is also a very delicate matter. We are normally accustomed to the law of the land. We need to learn our Islamic law first. The law of the land holds no weight. You have to follow the law of the land in paperwork, but Islamically, many of those rules won't apply. Many of those rules won't apply. We all understood this, inshallah? We all understood this, inshallah? If you're sitting here new, then just listen to the tilawat, listen to a few words. But we're going backwards. 3 weeks we've been discussing the masail of talaq. You can listen to the recordings and you can update yourself with all the new masail. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. We are in the second verse. Inshallah, we hope to discuss and recite the second and the third verse. We'll try to. If we can't, we'll suffice with the second. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فإذا بلغن أجلهن فأمسكوهن بمعروف أو فارقوهن بمعروف وأشهدوا ذوي عدل منكم وأقيموا الشهادة لله ذلكم يوعظ به من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر ومن يتق الله يجعل له مخرجا ومن يتق الله يجعل له مخرجا ويرزقه من حيث لا يحتسب ومن يتوكل على الله فهو حسبه إن الله بالغ أمره قد جعل الله لكل شيء قدرا صدق الله العظيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the first verse addressing Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, but ultimately addressing the entire ummah, says, O Nabi, when you divorce your wives, then divorce them لِعِدَّتِهِنَّ طَلِّقُوهُنَّ divorce them لِعِدَّتِهِنَّ according to their period of iddah, or at the time, according to their period of iddah, their duration. وَأَحْصُوا الْعِدَّةِ and count this period. Count this period. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ رَبَّكُمْ. We're going to go back to this sentence very quickly. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ رَبَّكُمْ and fear your Lord. Have taqwa. لا تخرجوهن من بيوتهن do not take them out of your homes. ولا يخرجن nor should they come out of your homes. إلا أن يأتين بفاحشة مبينة unless they commit a clear act of fornication or indecency or immorality or shamelessness. وَتِلْكَ حُدُودُ اللَّهِ and these are the boundaries of Allah, in other words, the laws of Allah, in other words, the Sharia, Islamic law. وَمَنْ يَتَعَدَّ حُدُودَ اللَّهِ and the one who exceeds the boundaries of Allah. In other words, the one who breaks the laws of Sharia, does not apply Islamic law, فَقَدْ ظَلَمَ نَفْسَهُ he has oppressed himself. لا تدري, you don't know. You don't know. لعل الله, may that Allah يحدث بعد ذلك أمرا. Maybe He may bring out another situation after this. And we ended up saying many of the rules were in this. As I said, this verse, we were 3 weeks discussing this one verse. And so in the end, basically, Allah Ta'ala says, one of the points of this verse is Allah has given you a system of divorce. It's a whole system. It's a legal code. It's not just based on your emotion and feeling. I want to get rid of you, get out of my house, go to your mother's house. It doesn't work like that. You can't say it whenever. You can't say it however. There's a way to say it, and there's a time to say it. And once you say it, it's not that's it. She goes to her mother's house and you're done. No, no, no. There's a whole period after that where you're responsible. You have to pay still. She has to stay in your house. And then even separation in the end, when the separation happens, you said it verbally, orally. So a separation occurred, but ultimate separation doesn't take place. That'll happen after the time, after the iddah. Everyone understood this? And if you follow this system of Allah, there's khair in it, there's barakah in it, there's goodness, and maybe Allah will give you a good outcome. You don't know, right? Because normally when we do issue talaq, divorce, it's a situation. And Allah, we all know, everyone who's married, every single day we have a situation with the spouse, right? But what happens? Within a day or two, what happens? You realize, man, it was just silly what we were doing. It was nothing. Over nothing we're fighting. So what happens at the spur of the moment, even though the talaq may be issued, right? Over time, sometimes you come over and you realize, okay, this is not a decision I want to make. So Allah Ta'ala gives us that time, that period of time to actually make a rational, or you can say a decision based on not emotion, but based on sound judgment. That, you know what, 3 months have passed. Am I ready to keep this nikah, or am I ready to let it go? By that time, a person comes to a sound understanding to make a right decision. But at the spur of the moment, he doesn't know what he's doing or what he's saying. A lot of times that happens, right? So that's why Allah gives that time limit. So we want to start, but there was one question one uncle asked last week, and I think we should address it. The uncle was saying, I don't understand all these rules and laws where a woman doesn't get the choice and chance to divorce her husband in Islam. So I mentioned, and I want to just elaborate a little bit, that again, the mizaj, or like the temperament of a man and a woman is very different. The way a man and woman think are very different, right? And this is not just what I'm saying, maybe as a person would say a bias person or misogynist or anything like this. But if you speak to psychologists, they'll tell you as well. A man's brain and a woman's brain work very differently. Psychologists will tell you this. A man's brain and a woman's brain works very differently. Even though we shouldn't quote this as an example, there's a video online of a person who speaks about this. And he makes jokes out of it, so the woman also accepts that, he's right, and he makes a joke out of it. It's called The Tale of the Two Brains. I don't know if it's still on YouTube, but he mentions it very interesting. He says, shows that a woman's brain or a woman's judgment is mainly based on emotion, right? Mainly based on emotion. And a man's judgment is mainly based on rationality. Not that a woman is not rational, but when it comes to decision making, her emotions overpower her decision making. Generally, that's the case. Any wife that has lived 15, 20 years with her husband, she'll agree. She'll never admit to her husband, but she'll agree that every time we argue, I'm just throwing everything at him, right? And that's how a woman's brain works. So in Sharia, Allah has given the right of divorce to a man, right? That's that. But I'm addressing the question through logic, through science, that one of the wisdoms maybe, Sharia doesn't say this, I'm saying that one of the wisdoms that the hukama, or you can say scholars of wisdom, right? They mention, not scholars of Quran and Hadith, scholars of some philosophy or psychology. They'll say, look, a woman's emotion judges her. It's quick to make the judgments. She makes judgment based more on emotion, which is why an emotional judgment may not be so decisive. One beautiful example one scholar gave, he said, if there was a mother and father, generally this is the case, if there was a mother and father, and the child fell inside the fire, their child fell inside the fire. I understood this example, through this example, it made it very clear. It was a very beautiful example. If the child fell in the fire, the woman, the mother, will not think twice. She'll jump in the fire to get the child out. Her judgment is based more on emotion, right? This is generally the case. A man will think a second time, like, if I jump in, we're both going to die. So let me try to find another way to get him out. This is generally the way a man and a woman would think, right? That's just an example. But in the same manner, any couple that lives together for 20, 30 years, if a woman were to be given that power of divorce, I'm not saying this jokingly, but most men wouldn't be married. Because at every argument, it's about, you know what, I can't take this anymore, that's it. But a man has to think 10 times. Why? Because I have much more responsibility to take care of, as far as my children, her, my wife, the housing, my family, society. There are many more things that he has to think about than just, okay, let me let this go. So before a man will let his family go, he has to think 10 times harder than a woman would think. Because legally, Islamically, a man is more responsible monetarily. He's much more responsible than a woman is. Not responsible that he has better understanding. Responsible that, look, the responsibility is on his shoulders, is not on her shoulders. Legally, Islamically, he has to pay for all of these things. A woman doesn't have to. She has the responsibility of the home, so she's not looking at the bigger picture because she's not responsible for that bigger picture. A man is looking at the bigger picture because he's responsible for all even when the talaq happens, who's paying for everything? I'm not talking about American law, I'm talking about Islamic law. Who's responsible for all the funds, all the payment? It's the man. And he still has to take care of his wife and kids and his parents, and maybe in some cases his brothers and sisters. For a woman, she has no monetary responsibility, nothing. Whatever money she got is hers, that's it. She has no responsibility of spending that on anyone, even her own kids. So that's why a man, since he's more responsible, and this is why the verse in the Quran mentions in Surah Baqarah that Allah has given a rank of men a rank higher than women because of the responsibility that they have. Right? Because of the responsibility that they have. Not that a man is better than a woman, no. In terms of taqwa, everyone is different. No man can be better than a woman, woman better than a man based on gender. It's based on your connection to Allah Ta'ala, your taqwa that you have individually. But in terms of responsibility, a man has authority because he has more responsibility. This is also why when the parents pass away, the man gets double the inheritance than the woman. Allah considers the woman here. Otherwise, fairness and justice would be the man should get everything. The only reason for this is because the man will be fully responsible for all the expenses. Women will have no responsibility. I'm talking about Islamic law, legally. But Islam considers the woman and she gets one share, he'll get 2 shares because he's more responsible. He has to take care of all the finances, all the monetary dealings, and she doesn't have to take care of any of that. These are some of the reasons why the man gets the authority to divorce and not the woman. Now, the uncle asked another question, and it's a valid question. What if a woman is oppressed? And that happens in marriages. And what the husband will do, if he's an oppressor, he'll make sure that she suffers. And so what he's going to prolong it until he doesn't give divorce, he just makes more and more zulm, more and more zulm. So Shariat has given a counter for that as well. It's not called divorce, but it comes in place of divorce. When such a thing happens, of course, both groups have to try to get arbitration, where they get together with a family member who is able to make decisions based on the situation and sit and talk with them and try to fix things. This is both for the man and for the woman. And when they see that there's no way, then the woman can issue and she can file for separation in Islamic court, Islamic law. She can file for separation. And the judge will look at the situation, look at the condition of what's happening, and the judge can issue a separation. It's not called divorce, but it plays the same function as divorce. and the husband and wife are separated, even if he doesn't say talaq to her, they're separated. It's as if they're divorced. She can marry whoever else she wants afterwards. She lives her life. So there is an institution within the Sharia where the woman can file. We don't call it divorce, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing. She files for separation. Again, this becomes when the circumstances are dire, only because, when a situation becomes very difficult, then she would go. And alhamdulillah, the attitude of Sharia is also that we're not saying that a woman should have more patience. That's not what I'm saying. But generally, a woman has more patience. Generally, a woman has more patience than a man. So, actually, both sides, in order for elders who are married, mashallah, for many years, they'll tell you this, that if you want your marriage to last, one side has to sacrifice more than the other. That's just how marriages work. In America, it's different. You just get rid of it and finish. That's why most people in America are divorced. Most families in America are separated. There's statistics. You can check few results and everything. The statistics, most marriages in America don't last. It's because both have the right for divorce, so they very easily divorce. Right? But in mashallah, our Muslim marriages, our Asian marriages, they last longer because the fact that both sides don't get that power to divorce. But anyway, this is another whole discussion, and maybe another time, inshallah. What we need to do first is learn the rules in Islam, the rules of nikah, the rules of talaq. So having said majority of the rules, the second ayat, Allah Ta'ala says, فَإِذَا بَلَغْنَ أَجَلَهُنَّ. When the women, they reach their ajal. Ajal is the time. In other words, the end of their iddah. The end of their iddah, when they reach this, then the husband is now commanded, فَأَمْسِكُوهُنَّ. Then keep them back in your nikah, بِمَعْرُوف. بِمَعْرُوف, a good way. But the tafsir of this means in the appropriate manner. Appropriate manner here means following the rules of Sharia. It means that whole system we explained to you, there's a way to do everything. So if you're going to keep them in your marriage, then you have to follow the rules, you follow the system. You don't just say, okay, you know what, I'm not going to get rid of you, but I'll keep you and I'll watch what I do with you. That's not going to work. We've met people, couples, who said that, you know what, I'm going to keep her just to oppress her. So she can't leave the marriage also, and she can't do anything else as well. Oh, second option, فَارِقُوهُنَّ, or separate. فَارِقُوا, farq, right? Separate from them, from your wives. However, again, بِمَعْرُوف, in the appropriate manner, following the dictates of Sharia, following Islamic law. If you're going to divorce completely and separate completely, and you decide that we're not going to live together anymore, then you still have to follow up, make sure the separation is in a good manner. We're going to come to that, inshallah. So that's rule number, we did 4 rules actually, right? We did 4 rules before. This would be rule number 5. Rule number 5 being that when this iddah approaches, when it finishes, completes, right? The 3 hayz, or the 3 cleaning, the tuhur, basically the intermediate periods between the hayd, when these, depending on the Shafi'i or the Hanafi school, when that period finishes, comes to an end, that's the meaning of بَلَغْنَ أَجَلَهُنَّ. Now, rule number 5 is this, whatever we read right now. Now you have to decide what you want to do, right? Either you completely terminate the nikah, right? Or you keep the nikah. However, if you keep the nikah, you want to continue, as I mentioned to you, then you have to do it with this intention that I'm going to try my best to maintain the nikah. There are many ahadith, today is not the time for that, where Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, one example, he says that the best of you are those who are best to their wives. The best of you are those who are best to their wives. This is just one of many ahadith. So if you have that intention, then continue. This is bima'ruf, in an appropriate manner, proper manner. You have to, you are responsible for their expenses in terms of food, clothing, shelter. If you know that you cannot provide, you will not provide. You know that you will not be fair, just, you will not be loving, you will not be compassionate, then this is not bi ma'ruf. You're keeping her, but not in the appropriate manner. Everyone understood this? Appropriate bi ma'ruf means according to Sharia. What does Islam dictate on how you should keep your wife? Similarly, the woman also how she should treat her husband. If you both are such that you will not fulfill those conditions of ma'ruf, of continuing the nikah in an appropriate manner according to Sharia, then this is not the correct way of what you're doing. All right? So if you're going to keep, you have to follow these rules. Similarly, if you divorce, you have to do it in the appropriate manner. In other words, divorce or separate, not on bad terms, on good terms. What that means is I'm not going to start, after we're finished, we're continue separate, now I'm going to harass her. Call this family member, call that family member, call her every day and stalk her and do this and do that. And curse her out and her whole family and strip her of all her wealth, all the money that she had. I'm going to take all the jewelry that she has. Most talaq, that's how it ends up. The woman will take everything she can from the husband, everything that she can. And the husband will try any and everything in his power to make sure that he disgraces the wife or the wife's family. So a person might say, well, we're separated. What do you want me to do? Treat her nicely now? This is not bi ma'ruf. Even separation must be done bi ma'ruf, in the appropriate manner. In the appropriate manner. As an example, how much right do you have to treat a kafir unjustly and unkindly? Just think of that for example, for a minute. How much right do you have to treat a kafir in a not just unjust and unfair, but in uncivilized way? How much right do you have? How much permission? No permission. She's a Muslimah. She says La ilaha illallah. How much right do you have now? Imagine, just think of that for a minute. Just think of that for a minute. We're all sinners. Maybe she was wrong. But how do you know she didn't make tawbah and she's repentant and now she's connected to Allah Ta'ala? It goes same for women too. Same for women as well. A woman will blame the husband for everything. Same thing, man will blame his wife for everything. But when you do separate, فَارِقُهُنَّ بِمَعْرُوفٍ, Allah is saying to both that when you guys separate, it must be بِمَعْرُوف, in an appropriate manner, in the correct manner, and this means according to the rules of Sharia. People forget, right? People forget when they get divorced that she's a Muslimah or he's a Muslim. He says La ilaha illallah, he prays the salah. You get what I'm saying? Another wisdom is that Allah Ta'ala, I mentioned this already, Allah gives us that chance and that time limit. You have a few months, reconcile, try to fix this problem that you have. Try to reconcile. This is one of the wisdoms behind the iddah also. Try to see if you can reconcile. Rule number 6. وَأَشْهِدُوا ذَوَيْ عَدْلٍ مِّنْكُمْ وَأَقِيمُوا الشَّهَادَةَ لِلَّهِ. And make witness to ذَوَيْ عَدْلٍ, two upright people. Adl, just fair. Right? Two upright people from among you, and establish this testimony for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What this means is when the divorce was pronounced, no one was there at that time, the man issued the divorce. However, towards the end, now they're going to make a decision based on what? Sound understanding. Based on what? Not just anger, not just at a fit of rage, or not just, it already happened, the word already was said, but now they have a chance to finalize the divorce. Either they finalize it or they revoke it, they stop it and they continue with the nikah. At this point, ulama say it is mustahab, preferred, that you should have two upright people there as witnesses. Because later on, problems will happen again, that no, this happened, you said this, you said that, and so towards the end of that period, you should get two upright people and sit with them and say, look, this is what we finally decided. And by that time, after 2-3 months, everyone's a little bit cool now. They realize that, you know what, I had 3 months to think about it. Am I going to stay with this person or no? Can I or can I not? Now you have two people there, You make them witness that this is what we agreed to, that we cannot stay together. We cannot stay together. This is mustahab. Allah Ta'ala is saying you should keep two witnesses to there as testimony. This is something that you have in Sharia in multiple scenarios where you have witnesses, and this is so later on more problems don't arise. Yes, you already, when you first issued the divorce, no one was there, but now when you're finalizing it, that's where you have two witnesses. This is more appropriate. So later on, if someone decides after the divorce is complete and final, because the divorce will be complete and final by the end of that term, right? By the end of the term, either he takes her back, or he can remarry, meaning that the divorce didn't completely finalize, right? He can remarry, take her back, or if it's the third category where it's the extreme type of divorce, but at least now they can separate on good terms. So this is the reason why two witnesses. Also, I didn't mention this. One of the meaning of ma'ruf in the proper way is that when she does leave the house, it is mustahab, rewardable on the ex-husband, that he gives her some clothing and something appropriate that she can go and she can continue. This is also mentioned in the books as well. Yes, you had a question? I think there's detail in the Masla there. There are different scenarios. I can't recall for this one what scenario it is. So for some, you can only take men as witnesses, and for some, you can take women as well. But I'm not sure. Next, Allah Ta'ala says, okay, these are the 6 rules actually that are here. But the 7th rule Mufti Sahib mentions, we already mentioned this before, that that depending on what kind of word he uses, it depends on what kind of divorce takes place. I mentioned this before, I'm just quickly going to say it again. If he uses clear words of divorce, I divorced you, I give you talaq, and as mentioned, it should be only once, then, and it should be in the time of her, not her menses, but her cleaning period, right? Clean period. Then one divorce takes place, it's called talaq raj'i. You can easily nullify it by simple acts of showing love or compassion, and the nikah automatically it's connected again. You don't have to formally do a nikah. Easily you can take her back. It's called talaq raj'i. To take her back is very easy. Sheikh, if I make a mistake, you can correct me, inshallah. Sheikh is also, mashallah, is a great alim also, alhamdulillah. But he sits there out of humbleness. We hope, inshallah, if we make any mistakes, you can correct us, inshallah. The second situation, and we mentioned this again before, that when a person says words that are ambiguous, he doesn't mention clear words of talaq, but his intention is talaq. This is the second category, which is a bit more severe. When a person, for example, says, "Get out of my house." One is get out, I need to cool down. You need to cool down. His intention is not talaq. And this is something that he's the only one that can say what his intention was. No one else can judge because it's an inside. If he says, "Get out of my house," or he leaves the house with the intention that I just need to cool down. So there's nothing there. But if his intention is talaq, then this is a more severe form. When words are ambiguous, they're not clear, there's a more severe form. This is called talaq ba'in. Meaning an actual divorce takes place, and in order to get her back, you have to remarry her. You have to remarry her. These are the two main categories. And the third one is the most severe, called mughallaba. The most severe This is when he issues divorces. Three divorces, and divorces complete or final they occur, then he cannot take her back. There's no taking her back. Unless she ends up marrying someone, and a proper marriage, not a scheme that I get someone to marry her and then divorce her. I told her this is haram. But she ends up marrying someone, and that person, on his own accord, he divorces her after he spent time with her, he slept with her, everything. Proper marriage. And then she gets divorced, then they can remarry again. It's not a scheme that you can play in. Anyway, this third category can happen when a person issues three divorces. And three separate divorces properly. However, there's a small misconception that some people they brought out recently. Otherwise, this all four Imams of fiqh, Abu Hanifa, Shafi'i, Malik, and Ahmad bin Hanbal, rahimahumullah, they're all unanimous. There's consensus that these three issues of divorce, or these three verdicts, or these three divorces, when a man utters them, it doesn't matter if they're together at once or separately, all three fall together. The misconception that some people raise recent times, it became more prominent, unfortunately, is that if you say all three at once, only one falls. If you say a million at once, only one falls. So this is not found in any of the four schools of fiqh. All schools are unanimous, all scholars are unanimous, that if you say it three times, whether it's together, whether it's separately, all three fall. And I don't know, this is, I guess, some type of wrong understanding back home in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, that you have to give three in order for talaq to happen. This is not true. So our people, a lot of our people have this habit, or they think that in order to divorce the wife, I have to say talaq three times, talaq, talaq, talaq. Not realizing if once you say that, you're done. It's that third irrevocable talaq. You cannot go back. Mughallaba. Unfortunately, you have a lot of Maulvis for dollars. And you have people that go fatwa shopping. Now you find the appropriate person, you give him enough money, somehow he puts your nikah back together. This is haram, and your nikah will not be considered correct. Right? This is not the time to discuss it. This is not the time, but their books have been written on all the proofs. You know, there was a misunderstanding in the time of Sahaba also. This misunderstanding was corrected. One of the Sahabi said, it'll only be one talaq. Yes, one Sahabi said this. And this is where they take the proof from. But Umar radiallahu anhu, who was the qadi, he was the judge, he was the grand mufti, he said this does not apply. It will not apply. And all the Sahaba agreed to this. And when a person utters several, because again, when you have a misunderstanding, many people take this in the wrong way. Did Sahaba fight among each other? Yes. Was it something that was right? Was it something that was correct? No. My point, can Sahaba make mistakes? Yes. That's why you have to look for decisions in rulings of deen. We respect all the Sahaba. We respect and honor all the Sahaba. But you will take the ruling of that Sahabi who was the Mufti. There are many Sahaba who are not ulama. They were more connected to Allah than any other Mufti today, no doubt. But if you ask the ulama, there were ranks of Sahaba in terms of ilm and knowledge, isn't it? Yes or no? Some Sahaba were ulama, other Sahaba were not ulama. Some Sahaba they were qadis, they were muftis, they were judges. Other Sahaba were not. In the time of the Sahaba, many of them went to who? They went to that Mufti Sahaba. Among the Sahaba, when they would have a discussion, what's the fatwa here? I don't know. Let's go to Sheikh Ibn Abbas. Let's go to Umar. Let's go to Ibn Umar. Let's go to Ibn Mas'ud. Let's go to Abu Hurairah. Let's go to... They're not going to go to Auf bin Malik al-Ashja'i, radiyallahu anhu. He's Jannati, isn't it? But he wasn't a Mufti. As an example. So this is why, even when you look at the lives of the Sahaba, you don't take any and every of their verdicts to be something that you implement. This is why fiqh is very important. Ulama, they looked at all the Sahaba, they looked at their actions, they looked at the statements, and they extracted what we have to apply. Did everyone understand this, inshallah? So just because a Sahabi said something somewhere doesn't mean that's the fatwa all the time. Does it make everyone understood this? Everyone understood this, inshallah? Even today, inshallah, all Muslims will go to Jannah, yes? Yes? But does it mean every single Muslim is doing the correct thing? Does it mean every single Muslim is doing the correct thing? No, of course not. Many Muslims are doing wrong, but Allah's, it doesn't mean that he's Jannati, so I must follow him. No, he's Jannati between him and Allah. His mistakes, Allah will take care of. You have to follow those who are righteous, those who are knowledgeable. Right? So anyhow, because of a misquote of a Sahabi, some people took that as a fatwa of, I can do this. This is incorrect. Again, this is a long, detailed discussion. The ulama, even, mashallah, the Hanbali ulama who, some of the ulama who do issue this verdict are from you can say the Salafi school, the Hanbali school. But the reality is the Hanbali ulama who are the muftis and the qadis, they will not issue this judgment. They are unanimous among their own madhab also. If you go to the ulama of Saudi, the ulama, not the general public or not just any random imam of a masjid, but you go to the qadis and the judges, they'll tell you this is not the case. We are with all the other schools as well. All three will fall. Anyhow, Allah Ta'ala says, ذَلِكُمْ يُعَظُ بِهِ. This is now advised. This is advised, man kana, for the one who believes, yu'minu billahi, believes in Allah, wal yawmil akhir, and the last day. وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ, and the one who fears Allah, يَجْعَل لَهُ مَخْرَجًا, Allah makes a way for him. Subhanallah. The one who fears Allah, Allah Ta'ala makes a makhraj, an exit, a way for him. And what else? وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ, and He sustains him from means that he never pondered over, he never thought. In other words, from means unimaginable. Allah Ta'ala supports him and helps him and sustains him from means that he never even thought he would get help from. وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ, and the one who has tawakkul, the one who has hope, who has trust and relies على Allah, upon Allah, فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ, Allah will suffice him. Allah will suffice him. إِنَّ اللَّهَ بَالِغُ أَمْرِهِ, verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, بَالِغُ أَمْرِ means his matter or his judgment or his ruling, it reaches. And what this means is that basically whatever Allah Ta'ala intends, that is what occurs. Right? That is what occurs. Here in the English translation, it says, surely Allah is to accomplish His purpose. Again, same thing. His matter where He intends for it to reach, Allah Ta'ala will make that happen. قَدْ جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدْرًا. Allah Ta'ala has made for everything qadr, its amount, its limit, its estimation. Allah Ta'ala has estimated for everything to occur accordingly. That's what here in English, Allah has set a measure for everything. So, inshallah, it's already prolonged. I don't want to prolong it anymore. However, in these two verses, Allah Ta'ala talks about three things here, subhanallah. And it seems simple, but it's connected. It's very strongly connected. And I want to mention that next week, if Allah gives us tawfiq to live till next week. But I'll show you how it's connected. First thing Allah talks about is taqwa. Second thing Allah Ta'ala talks about is rizq. I'm sorry, taqwa. Then He talks about an exit or a solution, makhraja. Then Allah Ta'ala talks about rizq. Then Allah Ta'ala talks about tawakkul. So if you leave taqwa aside, He talks about three things: solution, makhraj, rizq, and tawakkul. And they're very closely related in general and to talaq itself. And when I studied it this time, that's when I realized, subhanAllah, they're all connected. But in order to explain it, we'll take another 20, 30 minutes. So inshallah, we'll continue this next week. But just quickly, so you don't leave empty-handed, if you have taqwa, then the talaq will bring you khair. If you have taqwa, then your decision of talaq, whatever you decide in the end, whether you take or keep her, Allah will put barakah in that, inshallah. And I gave this example before, I'll give it again. But when you have taqwa, even that talaq, there will be khair in there too. Similarly, when you have Acha, if you have taqwa, Allah will give you makhraj. He'll give you a way out. Allah will give you a way out. When you have taqwa, Allah will sustain you. A woman is worried, what? If I now leave my husband, if we separate, how am I going to take care of myself? If you had taqwa in your nikah and taqwa throughout your talaq, Allah will give you rizq. Ajib how it's connected. It's all connected. And similarly, if you have taqwa along with taqwa, tawakkul, وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ, tawakkul on Allah, bharosa, reliance. What did you say? Tawakkul, right? If you have Allah Ta'ala, He will suffice you. He will take care of you. And whatever is to happen, whatever Allah decides, Allah Ta'ala will put khair in. So it's all connected. Otherwise, it just seems like Allah's talking about taqwa and tawakkul, but it's very strongly connected. So that's, inshallah, we'll discuss a little bit more next week, inshallah. Allah Ta'ala give us tawfiq to understand. Subhanallah wa bihamdi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Inshallah, everyone again is invited tomorrow. Please do come, inshallah, for the graduation. May Allah give us tawfiq. Subhanallah wa bihamdi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.